and female entertainer, Calypso Queen of the World on 5 occasions. Would you please put your hand together? Let's welcome singing Francine.
Thank you. Hate, greed, color, racism is destroying the universe. I am totally against that. The title of my song, Equal Rights. That's my contribution for the evening, ladies and gentlemen. One, two, one, two, one, two, three. Equal rights. I've studied days and nights, I've studied blacks and whites on the question of equal rights. I say I studied days and nights, studied blacks and whites on the question of equal rights. Well, after careful consideration, meditation has brought me to one conclusion. The old, the young, the weak and the strong, only fighting a battle of equal wrong. Because everyone is born equal, with an equal right to be born. And everyone is equal, so don't treat each other with scorn. The color of your skin doesn't mean a thing. Live and love and be satisfied. You already have your rights, so there is no need to fight. The right to live is the right to die. Thank you. It is a simple case that we cannot face. We all belong to the human race. So you can tell your body, we all are made of mud, equivalently equal by flesh and blood. So what's the use of all this confusion, discrimination and fight for worldly possession? The rich, the poor, the weak and the small are equal in size when the master call. That's right. Everyone is born equal, with an equal right to be born. And everyone is equal, so don't treat your sister with scorn. We have the same earth to live, the same life to give, and yet we will not unite. We ought to be ashamed to play a dirty game and then talking about equal rights. Some folks may think me rude. Now I must conclude with those who show such ingratitude. The breath of life we share, the sun, the moon, and air are equal rights given to us here. We may not be the same in culture, skill, and name, or in habits, fortune, and fame. No matter who, why, what, when, and where. Now show me a man that's unequal here. Everyone is born equal, with an equal right to be born. And everyone is equal, so don't treat each other with scorn. No matter what you possess, well, you don't have to guess. The master said, let there be light. Someday you will agree. Just take time and see. Everyone has an equal life. Now they are foolish men who know but still pretend the laws of nature try to amend. No matter what you feel, the truth you can't conceal, and for sure, what is real is real. We may not be the same in culture, skill, and name, or in habits, fortune, and fame. No matter who, why, what, when, and where, just show me one man that is equal here. Ain't none. Everyone is born equal, with an equal right to be born. And everyone is equal, so don't treat your sister with scorn. We may differ in looks, in language, in shape, in ways, or even in height. But please don't forget, in life or in death, everyone has an equal right. Love is the answer. Love is the only answer. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And I love you.
Oh, yes. One of our gifts to the world. The calypso. It's an unparalleled music. Only we Caribbean people can do that, can do it that way. Our Calypsonians always trying to make sense of what we do, try to make sense of what we are doing. Singing Francine, one of the most beautiful voices. Beautiful, beautiful. You can hear every word. You know, the thing about singing and so on, sometimes, you know, you hear the rhythm, you don't always hear the words. But with Francine, you heard almost every word. Deep philosophy, making the case for natural equality. But as the Calypsonian would say, show me a man who is unequal. And then towards the end of the song, she said, show me a man who is equal. This week we're talking about equality. Partly because there are people who are trying to say that we are equal. They're treating us equal. The evidence suggests differently. So we are reminding ourselves of the notion of equality, the ideal of equality. We have to have equity first. That word has now entered our political lexicon. That equity as a means towards equality. Good evening to all of you who are joining us from Guyana. Good evening to the people of Linden. Last night we featured Linden, and so much love I got from people from Linden who contacted me and to say thanks. And one of the things I love about our people, Guyanese, across racial lines, Caribbean people, is that we get manners. Sometimes we can be very unmannerly, but when it matters, we have manners. Big up to the people of Linden and keep up the struggle there. And to all of you who are joining us from the diaspora, that word has now become known to every man, woman, and child. Those of you in the wider Caribbean, good evening. Those of you who are in North America, good evening. Those of you who are in Europe, good night, good morning, because it's morning there already. Those of you in Trinidad, of course, today, the Basilio Pandey, one of the colorful politicians of Trinidad and Tobago and of our Caribbean, was cremated today. He died at age 90 last week. Whatever you say about Pandey, there are a couple of things that you have to give him credit for. He was always searching for coalition politics, racial unity. He started out with CLR James in the Workers' and Farmers' Party. He didn't join the Indian Party, the DLP. Eventually, he formed the United Labour Front with George Weeks and Rafiq Shah, trying to unite the oil field workers and the sugar workers. When that didn't work, he formed the National Alliance with Lloyd Best, Tapia House, and A&R Robinson in 1981. And then that segued into NAR, the National Alliance for Reconstruction, which brought in Carl Hudson Phillips, ONR. And those of you remember, NAR swept the poll in that year, 1986, 33-3. Of course, Pandey fell out with Robinson. A little tidbit there, Lloyd Best was very strong. He said the NAR should be a party of parties. And the others said, no, they should go for a unitary party. And Best pulled out because he said the thing won't work. And within 5 years, the thing fell apart and the NAR was replaced by the PNM. Pandey then gave up, I would say, he accepted the logic of race in Trinidad. Sometimes you hear people say, well, Trinidad don't have the race problem like Guyana. And it's not true. It is not true. They have the race problem. They handle it different. And Pandey decided, look, I got to go to the Indian base. He formed the UNC. And in 1985, it was tied, 17-17. And Robinson, through his 2 seats in Tobago with Pandey became the first Indian Trinidadian prime minister. He governed for 1 term, and then he won squarely in 2001. But he was brought down by his own cabinet members, and he had to face the poll a year later. And then there was another tie, this time 18-18, and this time Robinson gave the prime ministership because by then Robinson was president, and the president had to make a decision. And he chose Manning. Although Pandey's party had more votes, they were both 18-18. The Pandey's party had more votes. But Robinson, and what he called moral politics, he felt that Manning was more in keeping with moral politics, and so he gave Manning the chance to form the government. A lot of people thought it was an injustice to Pandey, because he got more of the popular votes. Pandey was eventually thrown out of his own party that he formed, and in the end, he passed away, age 90. But really, he fought the race thing. Fought the race in the end. That's where he ended up, and he was quite sturdy in the end on the race thing, although he was a man who was trying to bring the thing together and so on. Basdeo Pandey, dead and cremated today in Hindu rites. The present generation wouldn't know too much of him, but the older generation would know Pandey. All right, I think we are all ready, and we have our guests ready to go. Dr. Henry Jeffrey, who writes a column in the Village Voice, Future Notes. Dr. Jeffrey, good evening.
Good evening, David, and good evening to everyone. All the best for the New Year's.
Thank you very much on my own behalf and on the behalf of our audience. Did you cross paths with Pandey?
Yes, I did. After when Dr. Jagan died, I was delegated to be with Pandey when he came to the funeral. And it's very interesting. The thing you say quite true, but they need further elaboration, because as we were coming down, politics, Pandey told me that Trinidad needs shared governance.
Yes.
Yeah, he said Trinidad would not get very far with national unity and all this. They might have little oil, they might be doing all this, but they have to have shared governance. I, at the time, did not believe in shared governance like that. I tell him, oh, you shared governance, you and Manning gonna be sitting down, and sharing the pie. That's all you mean. And we were having this discussion all the time. But he's saying that unless you have shared governance, you're not gonna bring two people together because at every election you hold, they're going to be out there struggling against each other. So yes, he was, he was a very, yes, he wanted the races to come together. But as you say, he had to end up accepting that there are races in Guyana, in Trinidad, and that is where the politics is. You can play the game if you like here, like I think both parties, this is a multi-ethnic society, race does not matter. But everybody runs to the race and everybody goes there for their vote and everybody trying to do it. And that is what Pandey recognized. Until you recognize that, you're not going to reconcile. You're not going to say, hey, let's run this thing together. And that is where he was correct. As I said in that article of mine, it's one of our friends, I think you know Gregory Gaskin, old Winifred Gaskin's son. He brought me around to this thing because he says, he told me that, almost what Paddy was saying, but he gave me some stuff to read, and he says, man, if you come back and tell me that you still think that is it. And I started to realize that here, this is more than just a matter of votes. It's a matter of that people have allegiances and alliances. And it's more than winning an election by one seat or two. If you win an election by one seat, what? You leave all the Indians out, you leave all them, and you believe you can sit there and make all the decisions for the country, do what you like the present regime. They have even now decided that they will get rid of almost the opposition. Don't talk to them because they said a rig election. What nonsense that? Since elections been going on here, we have been saying people rig election and people don't talk to you because of that. No, but they have set their sights upon different kind, the autocratic kind of the governance for Guyana for the way forward. That's why they got the people telling you about Singapore and all that nonsense. Just like the socialist world have their dictators, the capitalist world have their dictators. Singapore is a autocratic state. Yes. It's as simple as that. And as you said you were going to come to that, we'll come. So yes, I run into Pandey.
You run into Pandey, and I want to get your take on the question of the difference in race politics, if there is, in Trinidad and Guyana. That Trinidad somehow or the other they don't have the same kind of race politics. And I want to give refer to two experiences. On the night when Pandey won in 1995, I was just finishing graduate school, and they had introduced this training program to train professors. So in our thing, future faculty, they called it. And so we were at one of these future faculty conferences in Colorado. Howard University was one of 5 schools chosen for the program. And I was rooming with a Trinidadian. We were graduate students at the time. And the news, after the news, that fellow collapsed. And he said, David, Black people in Trinidad are done. And that experience stuck with me because I had also bought into the thing that Trinidadians not into the race thing as deep as we in Guyana. The other experience was 2010. I was at a conference, a Caribbean Studies Association conference, and the news came down that Kamala had won with the People's Partnership. And I had a similar experience with, this time, a professor, an African Guyanese, African Trinidadian woman who started to cry. Literally cry. And those two experiences seem to say to me that perhaps we in Guyana are reading it wrongly. But anyhow, your take on that.
Yes, it is. There is no doubt that there is that a feeling that the Indians are racist, and on the other side that the Africans are racist, and they want to do things for the race. There's no question for that. But what is not Trinidad has a stronger middle class, like a middle group for a start. And secondly, they never had a history of fighting and shooting and killing up and all this sort of thing. Hundreds of people dying for powers. And it's that history bring a greater animosity and a greater urgency to these matters. And as I said too, that existed on both sides. But then the PPP came in and into power. The West didn't want the PPP, and the West decided they're going to get rid of the PPP using Barnum. More animosity. But for the PPP to keep its supporters, it had only one thing left: ethnicity. It wasn't in government. It was telling them that Barnum is terrible, Barnum equals blacks, black this, and all of that. So, and we have seen it again, only recent. Look, my man. During which election was it? The 2015 election, I think it was, that Vice President Jack Joe wasn't charged for talking about kicking down door or something like that.
Yeah.
The other day, but look what happened at Monrepo. How can I have 3,000 policemen and can't stop a couple of thugs from going there? You got the police somewhere else when they should have been at the spot to stop that. But that is all to build up animosity again, because elections and all of that thing. And that is there. So because they don't have, Trinidad didn't have this history of killings and so on, and they have that thing middle class, it has not turned out. But it's not that the animosity isn't there. It is not at all. Pandey was right. He told me clearly, and I was the one at that time was saying, you won't have an opposition thing. And in those days, you didn't have this kind of social media. And so nowadays, you got too much opposition, because social media, people are saying, well, too much opposition around now. Social media thing wasn't there at that time. So yes, I mean, I have no doubt that it is there. It expresses itself differently in Guyana and Trinidad, largely because of the more turbulent history we have had in terms of race relations.
Dr. Henry Jeffrey here tonight, as usual, breaking down things for us. These are matters, these are issues that are constantly there. Sometimes we don't talk about them because we don't like to talk about race in a certain way. Pandey in 1986, as they were trying to decide who should be the leader of NAR, Pandey had brought, in terms of seats, he had brought 8 seats into the coalition. Robinson had brought 2 seats. Carl Hudson Phillips had contested the 81 election, got the second most vote, but didn't get a seat. So he brought votes. But Pandey very quickly took himself out of the race for the compromise leader. And his conclusion was Trinidad wasn't ready for an Indian prime minister. He was very, very clear and deferred to Robinson. Of course, Robinson was seen as the lesser of the 2 dangerous Africans, because both he and Carl Hudson Phillips had defected from the PNM, and it was a matter. And in the end, A&R Robinson, although he brought the least seats, the least votes potentially, he became the leader. But I remind us to remind ourselves that Pandey was very keen in his observation of race politics in Trinidad and Tobago. Dr. Jeffrey, your column this past weekend caught my attention, and I'm sure it caught the attention of those who read it. President Ali's New Year's delusion. President Ali, New Year's delusion. I know academics are very colorful with our language, and sometimes we get into trouble because people sometimes take what you say literally. You hear what Jeffrey said? Ali's delusional. Yeah. But that's part of the thing. Talk to us about what drove you to write that column, and what are the major points you're making in the column?
Well, I think that the president made the major point for himself. He's saying that Guyana should have be developed in such a fashion that it must take into consideration future generations as we go along, and become prosperous in that way. What I was trying to say essentially, that the way he and his party is proceeding would not allow Guyana to develop in that kind of a generational manner. Because for them to do so, it's not simply a matter of building new roads and building infrastructure. I'm saying you got to build institutions, and there's no way. There's not even an institution in Ghana that is working properly. If you go to the court system, what did I said? It says that the court system is collapsing, or almost there, collapsing. If you when you go to the education system, those, as I said in the article, those children was killed in Madia, and nobody seemed to know who was responsible for seeing that the place was properly done. But most of all, look what happened. One day, some people said pay taxes, $214 million US. The next day you get to pay 3, and people are saying, "How that happened?" The institutions are not working. I don't think you can go seriously to an institution that works properly in Ghana. Every day the opposition is complaining about the police. So when you want to build generational wealth and do things in a generational fashion, one of the first things, if you're calling yourself a democracy, is that you must expect that you can lose government. And if you lose government, you don't want to spend all the people's money planning to build a bridge, and the minute the other man come together, he throw away the bridge. That bridge ain't good. You see what happened with the hydro. Plenty money spent around it. If you want to build generation in a democratic context, you must say to yourself, look, we have to have consensus across the board. So if another man wins and come to a government, he will continue the project. You cannot get this thing that we have, this one struggling and saying this is not good, throwing it away when you are finished. Secondly, you have to build in terms of generation. You have to, let me explain. If you're going to build a road, you got to build a road that's supposed to last for generations. You can't build a road that lasts for, indeed, let me go back a little bit and say that I have not heard anybody telling us all these little roads they're building in the village, how they're supposed to last, how long are they expecting it to last. When you're going to build generationally, you got to ever say these roads must last for 30 years. This road must last for 25 years. Where is that discourse taking place? And don't tell me it can't do it. They can't do it. Because look at that Timeri road we have had that the Americans built since they were building the airport, maybe in the 40s. So effectively, these things has to be done. When you were talking about, he said, oh, we're going to introduce university fees and all of that. But the first thing that the university, and you're going to do that if you're going to do education in a generational manner, you cannot just say that we want to give degrees. You got to encourage people to take what we will call generic degrees that can work for them even when oil is gone. If everybody start messing around with oil and oil related business, oil is going to disappear on you. So when you, sooner or later, and when you people are going to university, they must go with the view by in 20 years, in 10 years, in 15 years, oil gone. But I am taking programs, and the programs are set up for the generation. So even education, you have to do that. But how are you going to chase away the opposition and don't talk to them and believe that when they come to power, they're going to keep with your project? They're going to throw it away. It means that you're throwing away the people's resources. Because when they come, they're going to say that wasn't good enough, and then they're gone, and when you come back, and there are no discussion on the longevity of these projects. You're saying, we will build this, we will build this, we are coming in the villages, we are giving some men thing to build concrete roads. But how long are those concrete? If concrete break, that must be worse than if asphalt broken up. How long? 3 years, 4 years? It will not do. You have to discuss with the villages. You have to discuss with the opposition. You have to have some consensus. So even if you lose the elections tomorrow, these things will continue. But not as we are going. So he must be disillusional if he thinks the way they are doing this, he's going to build for any generation. It's not going to happen in the way. Indeed, we're going to lose a lot of money as we go along. And that is what I'm saying. But you see, as I coming down to the end of the column, I said that people must already have seen me talking about democracy. That
Yes.
last week or the week before, I said that Ghana is no democracy. Well, Ghana is not a democratic country. Ghana, you only got to look at those numbers that you just put up there. Look at it carefully, and you'll see Ghana is not a democratic country. And if the one they are telling about Singapore is even less so, they talk about electoral democracy. They talk about free and fair elections and media clearance and so on. And guess what? Let's think in terms of 100, because most of us go to school, we know it's 100 marks, and then you got to get marks to pass. 50, normally they say you got pass grade, and so on. So you get forced and all of that. You just look at the one thing that the PPP talks about. The PPP is classified as an electoral democracy. That means it has none of the other virtues of a democratic society. That is its official classification. It and Singapore, the very Singapore, it's just that Singapore a bit lower than it is. And guess what? Let's go to what the electoral bit of this democracy. Look, I have the numbers there. If Denmark is if Denmark got 90 marks out of 100 as number one, and if Jamaica got 33 out of 100, guess what Guyana got out of 100?
84.
5. 50.
Yes, right.
50. And that is the thing they boast about most of us. Oh, we have democracy. 50 out of 100 is like you just barely passed. And that is why, and that is why they're classified as an electoral democracy minus, not even electoral democracy, minus going to be an electoral autocracy. because you just at margins. That's what they are. And essentially, and if any other thing I see you're talking about equality and so on. This one here about egalitarian at the last bit. If you look there, the last bit deals with measures the level of equality, access to resources and power. Denmark got 80, 90, because they had 78. Denmark got 90. Guyana get at best 40.
40, yes.
All the other Caribbean countries, look like Trinidad, got 70. I mean, Ghana got 40. 30, yes, 30, call it, yeah. 40. I mean, let's get real here. So effectively, that is where we are. It doesn't matter what you want to look at. If you want to look if the government is doing things in the best interest of the people, as opposed to due to coercion or a narrow interest group. I mean, interest group is anything. It can mean race. It can mean anything. Interest group. That's Didi. Guyana got the lowest mark over. Well, the lowest mark. It's getting bad mark, but this was the lowest one it got. It got less than 30. Out of 100. Let me call it. Well, Trinidad got 70. I mean, so on any scale you put it, even the one they boast about and talk about, oh, we have the election and election was not rigged. Nobody, you barely scraped 50 out of 100.
Yeah.
So you can't do that if you're gonna. But you see that they want to follow the Singapore model, and the Singapore model is really allowing. Well, Lee Kuan Yew, you know that he broke away from Malaysia and moved to, and become a nation state by itself, and Malaysian Federation. And he did so around 1969. He took, and it was racial problems in Malaysia that gave rise to this feeling that they should break away. So this is some Chinese that are now 74% of the population. That's not Guyana. This is not Guyana. This is 74% of the population. And therefore, he hasn't got this, and they broke away, and they have stayed with that party forever. Indeed, it's since 1959. One single family has been running Singapore. And that is what they are saying should become a model for Guyana. Guyana is a bicommunal society. Very much so. And and the people are not going to stand for it. They can try what they like. You see what they try during the local government and all of that. But people will not stand for it. It's as simple. So I think that even on that score, even if he's trying to say, all right, we're going to go for this autocratic model, he's going to be stopped in his tracks. Because effectively, the autocratic model, he doesn't have the, like Singapore, he doesn't have the backing to do that even. So he's not a Democrat, he's trying a type of democratic autocracy that will not work. And we see that it's not working. They can talk as much as about how much you're building. If you got money, you can build bridges. And I've always said the easiest ministry must be Ministry of Works. You want the argument? Yes, because you can build anything if you want, if you think. The easiest ministry must be. I've said that all the time. The ministry that's hard to run is them like education, because you don't see any returns for 5-6 years. You can go and do things there maybe for longer than that. So effectively, it's just not going to work, and that said is delusional.
Yeah. Henry, put on your political science hat here. Are we to be concerned in Guyana, and by extension the Caribbean, of the drift towards more autocracy? You look at the United States of America, you look at Europe, some of those far-right government, you look at Israel. Is the world moving towards autocracy? You and I, when we were in graduate school, would have learned, was it Rostow?
Yeah.
But anyhow, go.
Development and growth and
Right.
Yeah. Yes. In a sense, yes. But it's only insofar as the old institutions are not capable of dealing with the ethnic situations in these countries. Because, the old institution, effectively, you have some European white people in America who are not going to leave Trump because they believe the system is not taking care of them. And America got a more pluralistic system than us. America, it was when the founding fathers were doing it, you have a situation where California can have millions of votes, and Rhode Island can have a couple of million votes, and they both have 2 senators. That is because people said we are not going to be overrun by that and this and so on. So look, Hillary Clinton got more votes than Trump, and still he became president. So I think it was Chris Cuomo a couple of years ago I heard this thing, and he said it's the police. We need another party in this country. I mean, something got to give here, and I think that the framework that they have in place was always by a dominant ethnic framework. Now it's coming under pressure. Look at America was a dominant ethnic, Britain a dominant ethnic. Britain still is a dominant ethnic framework, but it is coming under pressure, and all sorts of other things are at play. For instance, immigrants tend to be a more Guyanese would be here now working. When they go to America, you see how they're working and digging up and so on. And they always seem to be getting ahead a little bit more and all of that. So effectively, you have to have a political institutions will have to start to reflect the ethnic balance in the countries and give those balance force. You can't just say, all these people come from Latin America, Africa, and they are for the Democrats, and they vote for the Democrats, and that's it. And leave 40% of people out there. You notice Trump vote is not going away. No matter what he do. It's not going, it's like the PPP or the PNC. The vote's not going anywhere. They're not going away. So effectively, what you need to do is look at Switzerland. Now that must be Switzerland. Every group there almost got. Well, it's gone now. But the Swiss situation, the minute, for instance, you had 3 parties. Swiss don't have a president; it has presidency, and they rotate over the 5 years. Everybody take a year and come back and so on, because they recognize that, look, every group has to get expression in the governance system, and Swiss is perhaps one of the most democratic, peaceful, well-governed, richest, one of the richest, and so on. So the other countries are now coming under that pressure. In my view, they're now coming under that pressure, and they will have to fix it. It will have to be fixed. And they are trying, remember, in Britain, you had ethnic disparity studies and all these things to see how the disparities and try to deal with it. You tell anybody, hey, you do an ethnic disparity study, they're going, what? They can't do it because they know that the whole policy was to make it unequal. So now you're going to ask them to do ethnic disparity studies. They were trying for all this time to make it unequal, thinking you're going to force black people either to leave or in the PPP. And now you come in and tell them, but what? Ethnic disparity studies so we can see where the disparities and try to solve the issues.
Dr. Henry Jeffrey, in case you are wondering the thing that I have on the screen, it's saying Gaston and them wicked corruption, incompetence, and steroids, they got to go. This was a demonstration in Antigua.
Okay.
An opposition demonstration.
Okay.
And this was a placard by one of the demonstrators.
Okay.
And the Prime Minister has threatened to sue the person for defamation. The person was carrying that placard. The Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda is threatening to sue the person with that placard. Dr. Jeffrey, I was on a program, I think this morning in Antigua. And I have to say, I live in a country with autocratic governance back then and now. But I can't remember Burnham threatening to sue somebody for defamation for a placard.
Well, no, at a demonstration for politics. And I mean, yes, you know, and the same thing here, they talk about Bork must come back.
That's where I'm going. That's where I'm going. Because the parallels are there.
Right? And well, you see, in Guyana, where are we classed? I put that down somewhere too. 70 something. We got the worst judiciary in the world in terms of rule of law. And this is the rule of law index, the worst thing in this region, English speaking Caribbean. And you would now want to say, oh, why doesn't Burke come back? You got the place essentially where you have the two head of your judiciary has not been appointed for 2 decades. Is this, and you want people to come back and do what? You got elections commission cases that people dilly-dallying with. Indeed, we will never hear the actual case. We will never hear that case where they, after the recount, all the faults are found. And that is the crunch case. And you never hear it. So what are we talking about? You don't have the kind of judiciary that would allow people to say, let somebody come back there, or even allow the person themselves. And now look what you have put up there. Yeah, I mean, but I think that's a joke. When it gets to the legal system, you can say what you like. I mean,
it's going to be thrown out, but the damage is done because it has driven fear. Obviously, it is intended to drive fear into opposition.
But
people.
You can't drive fear into a person in a democratic country with that. They're going to say, all right, sue. Because, I mean, you can't go sue us and we see where this is going. Indeed, they're saying about Bork. There's some rule in America about political exception in the sense if people are being threatened abroad in their country, you can go do a couple of things. You can either extradite them or you can try them. And you got all of these other things too. So don't, what you are seeing there, I bet that's not the first time he made a statement. That sounds like a statement, apology. I will sue you also, but numerous times you hear that. But they don't carry no suit anyway. That's just to, as you said, to scare people away.
Uh, Dr. Jeffrey, in your column last week, you dealt at length with the Burke factor, the Burke scenario, because you saw that the Burke thing is much larger, much bigger than just them going after Burke. Expand on that.
Well, essentially, what Burke is saying, what is Burke saying that people are saying? You must be saying all these things, or one side is saying any old thing. I mean, you know, so what has Burke really said? That the PPP racist? You know, indeed, I mean, who has not said that? I mean, and nobody has, but Burke is in a different place.
Mm-hmm.
Burke is in the halls of power, in the most powerful country in the world.
Yes.
Who knows, because it's they do these numbers, who knows that what he's saying is not without some foundation? If them do these numbers that you had up there, it comes from Europe, and they know it. I mean, this is not something anybody's hiding any longer. That any one of the indicators, it's not a democracy. It's an electoral democracy going to an autocracy. They know that. They're not going to send back nobody to an autocracy like this to go and to say it's and do anything. So Burke is there. Burke is in the halls of power. And these people from day one told this country what it is that is wrong. The day Biden administration come to government, he said, gentlemen, your winner-take-all system will not do. You have to change it. It has to be changed. It's no you Carter. They just follow Carter Center because they be saying so all the time.
That's right. That's right.
They just follow Carter Center. Says you have to change it. You can't get one seat majority, even if you get a one seat majority fairly. And then there's no way I seen any the last one seat majority was fair. If you get it fairly and expect that you can walk and take up all the people's wealth and do what you like because you have some party manifesto. Party manifesto only reflects the views of a part of a country. That's why you got government and party. Government is there to reflect the views of the entire country. And therefore, you have to take into consideration what the other part of the country thinks. You can't tell your opposition leaders, get out of town. I'm not talking my party. There's less than 50% of the people must vote for you. And even if it was 55, you still are in a democracy. And that is why in the parliament, you have the committee stage. The committee stage is when after we speak to the principal, and I curse you up on the principal, or you curse me up on the principal. After that, we go committee stage, and there we can both sit down and say, all right, you are the government, you want it anyway. Let's see how we can put things together to get the best out of this for the country. But that's not happening. That's not going to happen because even the Public Accounts Committee, like they closed down, even the one about accountability, the people can't cut them off. And nobody has ever done these things before. But you see, it's and that is what it Burke and is hurting. Because effectively, nobody done this thing because nobody was in panic mode like this government, because the government already said to them, the bosses, hey, this not working. And so they know, they in my view, they are trying, they would glad to see Trump win. And hope they're going to get some spear to talk. After all, Biden didn't invite the great Singapore to his Democratic Congress because it is not, it's below Guyana, it's 103, Guyana is 84. So Biden, but I mean, so it must be if Trump win, but what they're failing to understand, even Singapore, and Israel have a different contextual problems. Singapore, some people were running away. Now they got 74% Chinese over there. This, what they're here to in this place is a different kind of arrangement. It is not, and it's about, was always about couple countries, Northern Ireland and so on, and they have a bipartisan understanding in Congress about these kind of countries. So effectively, when the Biden administration said that he wasn't just talking for the Biden administration, it was talking for a greater thing of what happening in these countries. And therefore, anyway, so that's why I believe the afterwork is where he's located.
Yes, yes.
It's activism that are keeping boiling in the right direction and the right places. That is what they're about.
Yeah.
What
Dr. Jeffrey, are you surprised that Jack Dio announced, well, not announced, but he said at his press conference the other day that elections are going to be held towards the end of next year? People were speculating that they would hold the election this year. Are you surprised that they are pushing it right down to the last minute? If we take Jack Dio's word?
But is it? I'm not certain. But I think he had in his 5 months.
Well, yes.
Is that legal? I'm not hearing from the other side. Well, I have not tried to check it. But is that legal? He is trying to take, going from the time he took power, but it is from time the election was lost. And
yes.
So he is, and then you can go back to May. No, I don't know if there's any rule that says that he can determine when you call election, because the election is 5 years from the date of the last election.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
I suppose I think there is some clause in that thing that says it has to be 5 years after the first sitting or 3 months.
Well, all right. Whatever he's putting it. Yeah. No, well, let him go down to the wire.
Yes, why do you think they're not going for the snap election that a lot of people were talking about?
What that good would that do? You've got to stop election for good reason. I don't understand. Because stop. What good would a snap election do? He tried something there with the local government, but it didn't work.
It didn't work. Yes, I think, yeah.
So effectively, no. I think he's going for the last day. Yes, go. I blame him for that. Because he has no interest or intention of doing anything else than trying to stay in power alone as the PPP. Carter been telling them this for years, the PNC and the PPP for years, that this ain't going to work. One day, even if you get 1 or 2 seat majority, you ain't got really the authority to sit there and start to make all the decisions in the country. It's just trouble you're looking for down the
road. We haven't talked since the Argyle Declaration. We saw the Argyle Declaration, and of course, there are different views on the declaration. But the declaration was signed by the 2 leaders, and then either the British invited themselves or the Guyana government invited Britain, and Britain sent a warship. And Maduro said, well, that's a violation of Argyle, and I am going to mobilize 3/4 of my troops. What's your take on that?
You think Maduro wasn't going to invade nobody anyways. and no, they gave him a chance again to come back and show that he's the man. You know, they are saying, but you believe, is Britain still part of NATO?
Yes.
You believe Britain sent any ship in an hostile environment without asking NATO or saying pass it by them? You believe if you bomb that ship, is Britain you alone you taking her in international of neighboring waters that they consider legal? You think Maduro generals went and sit down there? It's a chap. Hey. That is not Britain alone. That is NATO. And they got the thing that said, you touch one, you touch all.
Touch all, yes.
So you watch yourself, even Putin and Maduro with the thing. So if you think, and they want a rule-based world, and you seem that you don't want one, because you don't want to wait for the court. Everybody tell you wait for the court, even your opposition telling you wait for the court. So when you see the British send a warship, there's to take the pressure off America and give some leverage to the internal group, because Maduro blaming Exxon, they're blaming Exxon and America all the time. So, all right, send some, and he's riling up the population and saying that it's Exxon and Exxon. They say, well, let the British go in there now. After all, the guy has historical reason to be there.
Yes.
And everybody, any sensible person should be able to sit down and say, Britain ain't come if they ain't talk to NATO. And Spain in NATO. And how many of them, all the general and got all sort of things in Spain. So, it's something, you're going to attack NATO. You think British will send a warship? If it happened, so it happened. But I can't see that any country can send in a hostile zone, because a bit of a hostile zone. And to that, and you remember they sent it after the war. The thing was finished, the Argyle was finished, everything out, so they can say we are coming. Guyana is Guyana's waters, we are coming in. It's a legal move until the courts say otherwise. And Maduro go to the generals. I don't know that. So I saw that as a pretty unknown, but it put the British in good stead with the Guyanese government now, because regardless of what they used to say about the British, is only they send real equipment on the ground. So they gotta be very thankful to the British for coming and doing it. So you're doing that's international politics.
International politics. We've had a flurry of visitors. General Wesley Clark came.
Yeah.
I think Southern Command man is here.
Yeah.
They were here a couple of weeks, and then we have another esteemed visitor. The former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo.
Yeah, yes, I heard, but I don't know. Yes, he came
in his private capacity.
Yes, but nobody comes in this. They don't come in private. What are you doing there in private capacity?
Well, I asking you because you the highlight.
Well, whatsoever deal they broker with the PPP is coming here to tell the PPP this deal is still running. If you think because I come on the board and this deal ain't running, whatsoever deal we broker with you, it's on the table. So don't mess around here. So let me made clear that this is a bipartisan thing we operate here. So you see how long it take anybody to move Sarah Lynch, although she was Republican, left there, she's going one way.
Right.
Until they're ready for her to go. It's a bipartisan thing happening there. So I don't know why you come. I mean, I if I had to sit down and be at any cabinet meeting and anything, I would have made those points about our position on the ship in England, because I mean, they are reasonable positions. That's all I guess.
One of your old colleagues, former President Ramatar, has been out front on what's happening there in Gaza, and in some regard, without him saying it, he's really asking the question about where the government stand on what's happening with the Palestinians. I noticed one of your other friends, Ralph Ramkaran, has also this past weekend asked the question, why is the PPP dodging coming out on on what's happening there in Gaza. But they came out with those people who are attacking the American ships there off Yemen, off the coast of Yemen, but not on what's happening in Gaza.
Because, well, I don't know that, but I will say to you that because the people, I wouldn't say that the Americans or anybody got a thing. They don't want to thing with their friends, that thing and so on. They got their own little problem with Maduro and all that, and they want to go against the boys that they think will want to help them. That is I think that is the easy. That is the force a shot thing. And in a sense, Ralph, or what's his name, are correct. They could take a more up stance. You see, you're not saying that they said part of what they said is the correct thing. You got to get two-state solution to this thing. You have to get it. The question is, because the Israelis deserve to have a state by themselves. Now, it's not, I think I wrote a thing up the road about Israelis since 1066, people killing them in Europe and so on. And I mean, just for being Israelis. And, you know, Hitler only crowned it all with a 6 billion. But it's since 1066. And they ain't really got nowhere to run that. When you go there, you can feel totally safe. Say that I got Jewish people and this would not happen to me. And it might take some time for them to get over what happened for that history. And it's nowhere close to the history or thousands of years. And therefore they need a state where they have control over. I agree to that. But at the same time, you ain't got no right to kill so many people to get it. You know, you have to, and America and Britain is partly responsible for this. It's they. Instead, the British, particularly when they were in the protectorate, when they were running the protectorate, they should have not been allowing so many Jewish people from Europe to migrate unchecked and without systems. And by 1948, they were taking over the Palestinian lands, doing all that, and by which time Britain gone.
Yeah.
So effectively, this thing is up on them. They can't just put up their thing and go and sit down and say they should be more proactive, like they're doing with Ukraine, be more proactive in trying to get this over. And the government of Guyana could easily say that what's going on there is unacceptable. Biden almost saying no.
Yes, he was much clearer yesterday.
Yeah,
when he was speaking at the church.
Yeah, and as I think government, you could have said that a long time ago. You know what is going on there is unacceptable. You can't. They're killing people. Let me look at who had been responsible for. Put something on the table and let us see how we can move on here. So I don't believe that is because they're frightening Americans, but it's maybe. But they did say about the two-state solution, which is the way.
Dr. Henry Jeffrey here tonight. You can catch Dr. Jeffrey's column every Sunday in the Village Voice, the online newspaper. It's Future Notes, and it's always a good read. And of course, Dr. Jeffrey is here with us every 2 weeks, every fortnight. Dr. Jeffrey, anything you wanted to comment on that I haven't asked?
David, you have gone over above. As you always do.
Dr. Jeffrey, thanks very much, and I'll see you in 2 weeks' time.
You give me an idea. I'm going to write something on Panday this week. I was thinking what to write. Yes, I will.
Yeah. Panday, I think he's an interesting chap. I know he has had his fights with Rafik Shah, his fights with Robinson, his fight with Kamala, and so on. But I think he's a very interesting study in terms of Caribbean politics. You know?
Okay, thank you very much, David, and thank you.
All right, thanks a lot. All right. Dr. Henry Jeffrey there, and I want to thank you all for staying with us as usual in large numbers again tonight. We're going to be back tomorrow tomorrow night as we continue. What are we talking about tomorrow night? And I can't remember. But we are back tomorrow night. Tomorrow morning, you all can catch me on Bostonian, Guyanese Morning Time, Kidaki, Amsterdam. I'm on there on Wednesday mornings. And then, of course, I'll be back here tomorrow night. Thank you all so much for staying with us. And as usual, we love you. And we know you continue to support us because this cause, this struggle is bigger than the individuals. We are all in this together. Good night until tomorrow night.